I am a Bengali, and as all good Bengalis, we went to see tigers in North Bengal. Spoiler alert, no tigers. After one pretty disappointing day of missing 2 elephant herds and seeing no wildcat, much less a tiger, we stop at a dried-up riverbed. We are freaking tired. The sun is setting. The peacocks are screaming, the usual. Suddenly, we hear a growl. Monkeys are going nuts. The telltale sign of a tiger nearby. The guide tells us to rush to our jeeps. We oblige, but just before boarding, I see my dad smirking hard. After an hour of waiting, we see no tigers and head home. The next morning, while everyone is freaking out over the growl, Dad pulls me aside and says that it was a burp, a freaking burp. So I can proudly say that once my dad burped so hard the jungle thought it was a tiger.
This was a few years back, but my dad really got into my pot brownies. Only way I know this is because I woke up in the middle of the night to him putting baby socks on my dog. His only statement was, "Dogs shouldn't have cold feet."
I think your dad knew what he was doing.
One time my dad went on a hunting trip with his pals up north. As they went to bed, one of his friends chose to sleep by the fire while him and his other buddy shared a tent. Later in the night my dad heard rumbling and growling. Him and his tent mate looked at each other confused and figured it was Charles, the one sleeping by the fire, messing with them. They both opened up the tent zipper and there, in their face was a big old black bear. My father and his friend screamed. The bear yelled out too in fear. It took off, jumping over both Charles and the fire. Charles shoots straight up and takes off yelling in the opposite direction. He ended up falling into a creek. LOL, apparently Charles was frozen in fear the whole time the bear was in camp and finally reacted when the bear took off. This will always be my favorite story my dad has told me. He has so many, but this will go down as the best.
When I was about 10 or 11, this jerk kid who lived down the street egged the whole neighborhood one night. So after cleaning the house and cars the next day, my dad went to the grocery, bought about 12 dozen eggs at the store and egged the F out of their house and cars in broad daylight while their whole family was home. Like 4 p.m. Not giving a damn. No one said a word and no more eggs were thrown in my neighborhood for the remainder of my childhood. Yes, my dad is kind of freaking crazy.
One time my dad stole a bunch of plastic flamingos from his neighbor's lawn. He made a running gag out of it using friends who were traveling. He had postcards sent from all over the states, and some internationally too, I think, saying things like, "Hi, Mom. The Grand Canyon is really lovely this time of year," etc. He eventually coordinated to plant them all back in the woman's yard, some even adorned with little flamingo outfits. The woman had actually set up a welcome home, kids banner in the yard, and had beers out for my dad. Easily one of my favorite dad stories. That man never refuses to go the extra mile for a bit, which is probably why I have come to admire that so much in others.
One time my dad wanted to go to his girlfriend's house with our dog. His only method of transport was 2 buses there, 2 buses back. Buses in New Zealand only allow dogs on if they are guide dogs for the visually impaired, and seeing as he was not, he had to improvise. He was a prop man in film. He had a few tricks up his sleeve. He grabbed a cane from his cane collection, some white gaffer tape, a pair of blacked-out sunnies from his sunglasses collection, and a high viscount. All that was left was playing the part and somehow convincing the bus driver our tiny little chubby Jack Russell was in fact a guide dog. He did so, handing the driver the wrong amount, pretending to miss steps, making zero eye contact, and letting our dog choose which direction they headed. He managed to do this twice there, and then twice back with 0 questions on his authenticity. I only found out about his shenanigans after a friend of mine caught the same bus as him and came over to give his condolences for my recently blind father.
One time my dad fought an army of badgers and won. He became really concerned about badgers burrowing under the house and undermining the foundations. The house is up on a hill, you see, so with them tunneling into the banks, he thought this could possibly end in disaster. Badgers are a protected species in Britain, no trapping allowed, he's not really that kinda guy anyway. So he came up with a natural solution. Every evening just before the sun went down he'd walk around the back of the house and piss into the badger's sets. It worked. After a couple of months the badgers left, although it turns out that the house is actually built on a rocky shelf, so there wouldn't have been a problem. The collapse of one of their tunnels did do for one of our sewerage pipes eventually though.